Welcome back to Who's to Know. So this is part of our Friendsgiving edition, and tonight I'm starting the day before we're doing our Friendsgiving because I like to prep a few things beforehand. Most of that because it's necessary so that I can get a head start on some things. Some of the prep work, things need to sit longer or sit overnight before finishing them up or serving them the next day. So that is what I'm working on tonight. So first I'm doing a cranberry jelly. And so I'm starting with fresh cranberries, some fresh bay leaves. You can use the dried ones, that works perfectly fine. We're doing some granulated sugar. The original recipe called for cardamom pods, which are a little on the fancy side, and I didn't have any, and I didn't have a chance to get any, so I'm just using ground cardamom. You could leave it out if you didn't like that flavor or did not want to buy that. A pinch of kosher salt, and then we're going to put in some 100% cranberry juice, unsweetened. So because we're adding all this sugar, we do not need extra sugar from the cranberry juice. And then we are using gelatin. It's just unflavored gelatin. You find it like over by the Jello. It's what is in Jello to make it Jello. So it gives it that set look. And so you just set that with warm water for about 10 minutes while everything else is on the stove. And so I'm gonna go ahead and get a half a cup of warm water to stir the gelatin into. And then we're gonna get our cranberries on the stove. And those we're just trying to get to simmer down and have the cranberries, we're looking for the cranberries to start popping so that they are releasing their juices. And then we will take that off the stove, and then we will combine our gelatin water with that and just mix it up, take the bay leaves out, and put it in a mold. For the mold, you do not need anything fancy. If you had a super fun retro Jello mold, especially those metal ones, they're really cool. But I'm just using my bundt pan because I don't have a super cool retro Jello mold. But you could use a 9 or an 8x8 square baking dish. You could use a bowl. You just basically need something that's going to hold your. The recipe calls for a 4-cup mold, so that would be anything that's going to hold 4 cups of liquid is big enough. So we will just put it in that, cover it with some saran wrap, and let it sit overnight, and then it'll be just ready to serve tomorrow. With that, you do spray it with some nonstick spray so that it will come out of the mold nicely. And then you can, again, this is totally optional, is you can save some cranberries, some fresh cranberries, and do some orange zest and just coat them in sugar and put them on top. It's really pretty, so, but that is totally optional. So we are gonna do a half a cup of warm water. This is a tablespoon and a half of gelatin, of the unflavored gelatin. So we are gonna do that in there. And we are just going to make sure you just basically want to make sure that it all is getting covered by the water, and it's going to just do its thing and get nice and jelly. So I'm just going to set this here so that I can scrape it out. So I've got my cranberries and everything in there. I'm going to add the 1.5 cups of sugar. So we've got our 1.5 cups of sugar in here. This is the 1 cup, and the recipe also says you can use water. I like the extra punch of the cranberry juice, but if you couldn't get your hands on unsweetened cranberry juice, or you just didn't want to spend that extra money, water is totally fine. So this is going to go on the stove, and I'm going to bring it to a boil. So I'm going to do it on medium-high until it comes to a boil. I'm going to reduce it, and then I'm just going to stir it every now and then to make sure it's not burning. So I will show you what that looks like when it's done. I'm going to estimate it's going to take about 20 minutes to get to that point. And then once it's ready to come off, I'll show you what it looks like then so that you kind of know what to look for if you decided to make this recipe. and then show you the mixing of the gelatin and then pouring it into the mold. So we will be back in a while once this is nice and cooked down. All right, so this is our final mixture. So there's a couple, it's not like it's totally broken down. So they're still holding their shape a little bit, which is what's gonna make this so pretty. So we are gonna find our 3 bay leaves. The one nice thing about them being fresh is that they don't fall apart as easily, so you're not gonna get little crispy chunks. Of bay leaf, which is something you would definitely be running a risk of. You just wanna make sure you're getting them all out so you're not crunching on a piece. And this can be made a couple of days ahead. So we've got that, and then here is our gelatin mixture. And so this does not need to be cooled down or anything. It will cool down on its own. So we are gonna mix this up. I want to get that gelatin sort of broken up so that it evenly disperses. I did let it sit for a little bit longer than they said, but as it heats up, it will evenly disperse again, and it should be no problem. So we're just going to stir this around and make sure that we don't have a big old chunk of gelatin. And then we've got the bundt pan here. Like I said, if you had a mini bundt pan, it would be perfect, or one of those, any kind of jello mold, any kind of bowl, pan, anything works. So you just want it to be, like I said, about 4 cups is the capacity. It would actually be hilarious if you had some cans and you set it in the cans and had it look like, store-bought cranberry jelly. That would be pretty funny, but it would be 1,000 times better. Also, if you like ginger, this would be really, really good with some crystallized ginger or just some fresh ginger in it. That would be delicious. So here is where we are with this. I am going to let this cool on the counter for a little bit before I put it in the fridge so that it doesn't steam up the saran wrap. So I am going to cover it with saran wrap once it's cooled a little bit. It's going to go in the fridge. It will just set. It can sit for a couple of days in the fridge, so you do not even have to do this the night before. I don't recommend doing it the day of because it does need to sit for at least 12 hours. And then you just set it down in a dish of warm water, or run warm water around it, do it in a sink or something, or a bowl, for about 30 seconds. And then you can put a plate right here and then just hold it all together and flip it over when you're ready to serve it. And then if you want to do any sort of garnish, you can, but it's really not necessary. So that is that. And I hope that you all enjoy this if you make it. It is really delicious, and it's a fun treat to have on the table or on the buffet, because it is something so beautiful, and it's totally so much better than the store-bought can. So happy cooking.